Okay, welcome to this webinar. So this is part 2 of a 4-part series that I'm doing with Steve. So welcome, Steve, again.
Thank you very much, Katrina.
So Steve's from Happy HR and he joined me last week, as he will be for the next couple of sessions, which will be held next year.
Yep.
So today we're going to be talking about how to interview and find that next bookkeeper. So let's launch straight into it. So perhaps I should say last week was around finding the right persona, the culture, the right business culture, finding the right staff,
benchmarking.
The benchmarking, that's right. So, understanding where your business is going and where it's, what you're doing with your business, so that you know that you're putting the staff on to match that, the business that you are building. So welcome everyone that's attending today. If you've got any questions, please pop it up into the Q&A, and any comments are welcome to go into the chat as well. So we'll monitor both those locations for some comments and some questions as we go through. So this is for you, so I hope you get the most out of it. Please ask any questions. So Dominic has asked, where can I see the webinar replay from last week? So I will send out the link for week 1 in the email that goes out with this recording, so that you can download that recording as well. And of course, there's downloads that we offered last week, which was around the benchmarking and the culture plan for your business. And I feel as if there was one other document.
The blueprint, business success blueprint, the blueprint that you sent through.
Yes, that's right. The blueprint and your benchmarking and the culture plan. Yep. Awesome. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, everyone's asking for the recording, so that's all good. All right, so I've got to jump over here, I think. This one, there we go. So today what we're going to be talking about is establishing a persona, so an employee persona. So what we like to do is find the ideal client. So it's a similar exercise that you want to start to identify the ideal employee for your business. So we're going to look at establishing a persona. What should be included in your position description? And one of the downloads today will be a position description for a bookkeeper. We'll talk through that. How to develop a skills test, interview planning, and creating a training plan, which we're actually holding off. We think there's too much content for today. We're going to hold off the training plan for next year. So this year is all about the planning of putting staff member on. And the work that you've got to do before you make the decision of who it is that you do want to employ.
All right, so establishing a persona. So this is, it does have a little bit of overlap from last week, and I'll touch on it briefly. That last week we had a bit of a conversation around, well, the things to consider when creating that persona of the individual that you're looking to employ. So obviously, what skills do you require this employee to have? That also comes down to, well, what do you do really well? What do you do poorly? What's dollar productive for you? What's not dollar productive for you? So putting together, I guess, a list and doing what we call the time in motion study, which is discussed in detail in last week's webinar. But what I want to really focus on today when discussing the persona of the individual is, one thing that a lot of people tend to forget is that they focus really heavily on skills and competency, which is significantly important, extremely important. But in my experience, and Katrina, I'm sure you'll be able to back me up here, is that a lot of bookkeeping businesses, it's quite an intimate team. So whether it's your first hire, excuse me, or your fourth hire, it's quite intimate. So it's very important that when you're looking at that persona of the individual that you're looking to employ, really focusing on that fourth aspect there being their personality, because it's not just about what type of individual you need to be able to complete that role. So somebody that's going to be doing, as Katrina mentioned last week, the level 2 type of role. You need real high attention to detail, be competent in their skill set, and a range of other different things. But when it comes to how does that person fit in amongst your team or fit in with yourself, it's really, really important to establish what type of personality works with you, what type of personality helps to, I guess, counteract the things that you may not do so well. The whole, I guess, reason why you employ somebody, as we all know, is to make sure that your business is moving forwards and that you're having fun whilst you're doing it as well. So it is critically important that you find somebody with the personality style that, one, suits you, but then two, also suits people in your team. And I think we mentioned it on the Facebook Live, that a really cool thing you can do in the second component of the interview process around sort of that one-to-one conversation, taking it away from competency, is just have a general chat with people. Once you've established what that persona and that personality looks like, just have a general chat, because you want to make sure that you're, I guess, working with people that you get along with, especially when it's such an intimate group. And I think we just had a comment there about we employed a person who sat at her desk and ate food all day and left the mess at the end of the day. Yeah, office politics, the fun lunchroom antics that take place and people not cleaning up after themselves. It's you know what, it's first world problems, but it is incredibly annoying. We had a situation. We've got obviously a coffee machine in our office, and sometimes people just don't clean up all of the little things that come out of the coffee, like the little really fine grains, and it gets frustrating. But yes, totally agree, Diane. It's making sure that you have people that are on the same page as you, same understanding as you, and basically people you just get along with. It's easy to forget that part because we do want to focus on, well, what do they do well, but it's what do they do well and how well do they fit in with us.
Yeah, and I call it the coffee chat test.
Water cooler test. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So when I was employing, when they got to the final stage of the interview, as I mentioned last week, that I did take them across to the coffee shop and just had a general chat with them and got an idea about their personality and learned a little bit more about their background and their culture and whether they would fit in with me. And I did say last week that there was one candidate that didn't drink coffee. So I just didn't know how they were going to fit in if they were not a social coffee drinker. That could present a problem. So, there were other things that came out as a result of having a general chat with them that I thought, well, there's probably not going to be a good culture fit with the other staff. So very important. And another thing around the skills testing or the skills set that you were looking for, as you mentioned, I did look at the things that I didn't do well. So I wasn't advanced in Excel, and there were some clients that needed some Excel, macros going on. If they're QuickBooks, I wasn't very good at, I didn't do QuickBooks, but I had a couple of clients that wanted QuickBooks, and, I didn't know how to get into the reports, and that I would just do the BAS based on what they gave me. So ideally, it was nice to have somebody experienced in QuickBooks so they could get in and pull some reports and do some discovery while they were doing the BAS. So it is looking at what you and your current staff are missing in the terms of their skill set to, build that ideal employee that you'd be looking for. So it's important to understand what you want, what's going to be ideal for you.
Yep. And we'll go into a little bit more detail later on as to how to interview to do that.
Yes, that's some of those questions. All right, so
the one of my favorite questions, I mean, why are position descriptions so important? And to be honest, I say this to almost everybody that I have a conversation with when they come and approach us at Happy HR, that position descriptions are by far the most underrated document in any business. And it's unfortunate to see how many businesses that we come across that just don't take this document seriously. And the reason we say they're critically important is it's for a range of reasons. So the first one is around, well, it risk mitigates unfair dismissal claims. So we all know that if you do dismiss somebody, they claim unfair dismissal. Obviously, Fair Work is going to want evidence as to why that person has been terminated or dismissed based on performance grounds. So having something in writing, a document that is signed off by that staff member that indicates, one, what their roles and responsibilities are, but also what their KPIs are, what's their expectation in terms of, I guess, the quantity of work that they need to do, but also the quality of work. So that document alone, it's not going to completely dismiss an unfair dismissal claim, but it is a crucial part of the evidence set that you need in order to be able to protect yourself from that. The next one is it allows for a correct award interpretation. So I might go into that one at last, because there is another pointer that I do want to give to the team at the end of this point here. But the next part of it is it allows to get greater engagement out of your employees. So one thing that I've learned recently, and it's something that sort of just clicked as soon as I've been doing it for a very long time, but sort of just clicked to me, is that every employee, there's a range of different things that they want to help in drive engagement and their motivation within the workplace. And one of the key drivers is a drive to comprehend. So a drive to comprehend is about understanding what their role is, but not just what it is, but also what it does and what it helps to achieve. Everybody wants to feel like what they're doing every day is, one, helping the business, two, it's a value add to the business. It's not just something that they're rolling into work, sitting at a desk, doing their job and going home. People want to feel like they're contributing, and they want to feel like they're valued. And you're able to do that through the position description. And we'll go into the points around the summary and those sorts of things as to why they should be in there. But that document alone will seriously help in terms of improving that drive to comprehend for staff. They also have a drive to defend, which is about defending their position. So staff members want to know that they're doing a good job. And the best way to do that is to have that documented within a position description. So they know what when they're achieving something, they know when they're falling behind and what they need to improve upon. And it's a great way for you as a business owner to go back to the employee and say, hey, what can we do to help you? You're not quite up to speed where we need you here. What can we do for you? What training can I give you to get you where you need to be? So this document, the position description, is the central point of all of those different little bits and pieces in those conversations. And it's not a big document, but it is critically important to help with risk mitigation of unfair dismissal claims, engagement and motivation of staff, but it also makes sure that your KPIs are aligned with your goals and your values. So having those built into the position description as well means that, as we discussed with the benchmarks last week, that's the activity to get you from now and to where you need to be in 12 months. And this is how your staff are going to help you to achieve that. So very, very important right across the board there. And then lastly, as I did mention earlier before, it helps with correct award interpretation. So for you as a bookkeeper, this comes in 2 points. The first one is just for yourself and making sure that you're paying the correct rate for the employees that come on board. And the reason that's important is because it states the roles and responsibilities, it states education levels, it states experience levels, all those sorts of things that are required to correctly interpret the award. Now, with that, no doubt all of you in this session today constantly get asked the question from your clients, what should I pay this person? If I can give you any strong piece of advice when it comes to protecting your business around that conversation, is do not answer that question unless you have a formal, proper written position description to reference your answer off. Because if you ever get questioned as to why you gave that pay rate, you can go back and say, well, it was this document that I had that stated all of these roles and responsibilities, and everything else that this person was required to do is what you formed your basis of that answer to your clients on. Without that document, you've just given them an answer and you can't prove how you gave that answer. So just very, very important from that perspective that you as a bookkeeper, if you are going to answer that question, refer to the PACT website, the Pay and Condition Tools website on the Fair Work website as well. Feel free to get in contact with us if you would like to, but very, very important that you don't answer those questions unless you have a position description.
Yeah, and that's a great HR tip in general, not just for your own business, as you said, for your clients. And I didn't realize that a position description will strengthen what you're looking for, because we usually do just talk over the phone and say, well, what do they do, what role do they have, what experience have they got, and then you're backwards and forwards with Fair Work to determine what exactly is the award interpretation. And again, that's why I think it is so important to have a HR firm available to you to be able to talk to and just ask those questions and let them decide, so that, because the risk nowadays is so much stronger, that you are putting yourself at jeopardy, or your business at jeopardy, by and the clients, by suggesting what the award interpretation is, what the rate is. So it's just adding to your risk, I suppose. So mitigating your risk by having the position description that the employer, the boss of the client, has given you, or getting a contract or a subscription with a HR firm like yourself. It's really important.
I think also one thing people forget to check is their professional indemnity insurance, whether that would actually cover giving that sort of advice if it is incorrect. And the other thing that a lot of people aren't aware about is that obviously there's been a lot over sort of the last 12 months when it comes to underpayment of staff. It happens quite often. But if you as a bookkeeper are processing the pay on behalf of your client, so you're actually physically processing that pay run, you have an obligation under Fair Work's, I'm not going to say legislation because that's the wrong word, but their understanding is, because you're qualified as a bookkeeper, it's your duty of care or your obligation to make sure that you are, I guess, looking at that information and making sure it is correct, and you can be held liable if you do answer that question, or you do process those pay runs without looking into it further. So, but I don't want to go into too much more on that because that's not the topic, topic of today's conversation. But yeah, it is important. Exactly. And it all centered around the PD.
Yes. And Summer has asked, any tips on writing a PD?
We will get into those. I think it's in the next slide. There we go. So I'll go through that now for you, Summer. So basically, a position title. I mean, that's pretty standard. That's the title that they work, whether it's bookkeeper level 1, level 2, whatever that looks like. And I'm sure Katrina and the team would be able to help you with establishing that. A position summary. So this is a summary of the role. So you want to write a position summary that basically not too long, couple of sentences, paragraph at the most, that goes into what that position is doing, but also very important to add in how that contributes to the overall success of the business. So that way that person understands that every item on that list is contributing in this way. And constantly reiterating that point. Also talks about who to report to, so making sure that that's quite clear. That could also probably be added in the summary at some point, but it's just very clear to establish the lines of reporting. Performance indicators. So I break this down into 2 points. So your performance indicators from a competency perspective, so your quantitative and qualitative. So actually there's 3 points, qualitative and quantitative. So the quantity of work and the quality of that work, and breaking those two down, and making sure that there's measurements of that performance. So an example of that may be the performance indicator around quality of work could be attention to detail. And then the measurement of that performance would be something along the lines of all information entered into software is at 100% accuracy, all emails are written in a professional manner, all that sort of stuff. So making sure that attention to detail is taken care of, and what's the measurements of that. So your quantitative around what numbers they need to be producing, the qualitative KPIs, and then the last one, and so they're going to be structured around your strategic, operational, and financial goals, which is what we discussed last week in the benchmarking, and what that looks like. And then the final one will be your values-based KPIs. So have a bit of a think about the values that you would like your business to work off. Couple of examples from us internally at Happy HR is creating wow moments. So I have in my position description, I have to create a wow moment for clients. So that's the performance indicator. And then the measurement of that performance is at every performance review, I will have to state some examples as to when I've created wow moments. So every day I'm trying my best to create those wow moments, because that's a value that we live and breathe by. Another example is we are collaborators. So I then have to provide an example of where I've collaborated with somebody in my team. So basically you want to create a set of values, probably maybe five or six if you haven't already done so, creating a set of values, and then what does that look like? How can that be measured? And breaking those down. So your strategic, operational, and financial goals, which are in your KPIs as quantitative and qualitative. Yes, thank you. Some love creating well moments. It's always fun. It's really satisfying when you get those reviews. It makes it all feel worthwhile, but completely agree. So yeah, your strategic, operational, financial goals broken down into your qualitative and quantitative performance indicators, and then the measurement of those performances, and then the values-based KPIs and the measurement of those performances. So that's your number 4 and 5 there. And then the rest are quite straightforward. So number 6, be very clear as to the roles and responsibilities. Break it down point by point. Doesn't matter if the list is 30 long, making sure that you're putting those points in. Core experience required, that you may just have a certain level of years of experience that you would ideally be looking for in that candidate, or it may be experience on certain platforms or softwares. As you mentioned, Katrina, QuickBooks may be essential because it's not something that you were overly confident in. And then the last one, well, what's the education required? Is there certain qualifications and certifications that you want that person to have in order to be able to operate within that role effectively and meet those performance indicators set out? So I hope that answers your question there, Summer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've actually collaborated together and built a position description for a bookkeeper. So what I would trustably call a level 2 bookkeeper, so not a BAS agent, but somebody that has a Cert 4 in bookkeeping and has some good experience. So that is one of the downloads from today's webinar. You'll get that with the recording coming out to you within the next 24 hours. So look out for that. So that is one position description. And I'm also building for the pure bookkeeping community. We're building out a whole team of position descriptions. So for that admin bookkeeper, for that senior bookkeeper, for that BAS agent, operations manager. So yeah, we'll be building out those position descriptions as well. But at least one will be sent out with you today to everyone. So that's a base to start with the KPIs and the roles and responsibilities in a nice little 2-page summary. So that's one of your little goodies from today. Okay, so before I get started with the skills testing, I think I might just run a poll and just ask the question around, have you tried any testing? So it's a 2-question poll. Have you performed a skills test on a candidate so far in your past? So it's a yes or no, or don't know what to include. And if so, what was your experience? Did you have a successful skills testing where you put on the ideal candidate? Or did you miss some critical aspects within the testing that you did? Or did you fail miserably? And perhaps, yeah, especially if you didn't really know what to ask them, didn't match the skills testing with the role that you were putting on, is really critical as well. So just letting that go through. I might just leave that up just as we start going through what why testing a candidate is so important. And I think, many of you would appreciate this, that it takes a lot of time, energy and cost to put on a new employee. I'm actually going to end that poll. I think everybody that's going to poll has polled, and I'm going to share the results so you can all have a look at. Yeah, okay, so most of you that answered have performed a skills test, and all of you that performed a skill test did actually miss some critical testing aspects. So that's interesting. So thank you for sharing that experience. It's good to know that you've at least tried, recognize that you need to fix it or tweak it. Oh, Tracy, thanks for letting me know that you're unable to submit that answer. That's okay. That's not a problem. We've got a percentage of it. Okay. All right. So back to why testing a candidate is so important. So it's the time involved to research for an employee. So, you know, place the CCAD, you write the CCAD, place it, look at all the resumes, go through the process of interviewing and putting that person on, and then training them in your systems, inducting them into your business. So you know that it takes a long time to, you know, get them up to speed, get them even their logins and get them used to your workflow management and, you know, all of those things that we need to transition a new staff member over. And it's ideal to have an induction manual as well, to induct the staff in a consistent manner and make sure that you've not missed anything. So there's a lot of work in setting that up, putting those staff members through, getting them transitioned to the work that you want them to do with the clients, getting them introduced to the clients, to then find out that they don't actually work out. They're not the right employee, whether it is that their personality isn't matched to the business or the culture, that they clash with the clients, whether they've announced that they, you know how to do, you know, they're advanced in the software, where you find out that they're not. And, you know, I'm sure many people could give me stories, and you're welcome to pop it into the chat, of stories of interviewing candidates and what the results were. And that, you know, they generally are horror stories that you've put somebody on that it has made a worse impression on your business. And then you have to get rid of that staff. You've got to, you know, somehow exit them and do it in the right way as well. So you know, whether you're giving them some warnings or just having that that hard conversation to get rid of them as well. So so there's, you know, there's a lot of benefits in skills testing them, making sure that they are the right fit and have the right skills to be able to do the job, and not just trust that they say, yes, they can. Yes, I am advanced. When I used to test my employees or candidates, put them through a test, they said they're advanced, or they're, you know, they're really strong in MYOB, put them through, and they didn't even realize some of those features were in MYOB. And certainly they'd look around the screen and said, oh, where is that? They've moved that. And it's like some of the horror stories of, you know, of the, you know, the results that you think bookkeepers know everything, that they should know what you know. So you expect them to just come on board and be able to just run with the job and, you know, have the skill set just to move on, that you just want them to walk in and run. But, you know, it's just because they say they're good at that and they can do that does not mean that they can. So I know with our licensees, we've had lots of stories of people putting on the wrong staff because they haven't followed the pure bookkeeping skills testing.
I think that also talks to attitude as well, Katrina. If I know I'm looking for, when I ask somebody a question around how well they are at some competency component of the role, and they say a 10, that to me is a bit of you sort of go, well, so you got nothing to learn? Oh, no, there's always something to learn, but, you know, I still classify myself as a 10. Well, it's like, okay, well, this person's not obviously not very humble. This is a potentially attitude that's not going to work well with us. We still want to be able to teach this person. So that to me is a bit of a warning sign, red flag right from the start, if they're saying that, and then especially if they can't back it up with the skills testing later on.
Yeah, and also the willingness to change and to learn. If they're not willing to do it differently, they refuse to do it any other way but their way. And you've got to ask those questions, which we'll come to a little bit further in the session around that. But it's, you know, there are many ways. If they're not tested, if the questions are not asked, you don't know. You're putting somebody on blind. So it's really important to set up a skills test for yourself. So you, as I said, you need to test to the skills that you require. So, you know, you need to understand from your position description what they'll be doing and test to those requirements. So there's no point in asking them questions around their BAS if you don't want them to be reviewing a BAS. And it might be that you want to put them on and, you know, a year's time, they could do the BAS work. But right now, today, they don't, if they don't need to know the BAS, then don't test them for the BAS. Create a testing system from a template of like a dummy file and have a set of questions. So we are building up to be a repeatable, something that we can repeat, you know, all the time, the same type of testing. So we want to set up the questions. So tweak them if you need to, test them out on employees, ask them the questions that, you know, are relevant to what they'll be doing. But do include some advanced questions. So this is, I'd always go to the advanced features of the software to see if they knew it. And if they didn't, well, that's fine, may not be required, or they may need some training in it. But if you've got some advanced answers, then you know where their skill set lies as well. But don't rely on, you know, a whole series of advanced questions to make them fail, if you like, or you know, lose their esteem. Test them to their knowledge. Review the results. So already have a set of answers for the testing that you're doing so that you can review those results straight to those answers. And score the results also on time taken. So make a note of how long it takes and put a few tricks in there. So questions that they might have to ask you for further clarification, or perform certain tasks like, you know, how to fix duplicated records, or, you know, watching out for an incorrect ABN. They need, if they're a good bookkeeper, they need to be able to pick these things up. So put those tests in there. If they don't get it, well, then maybe there's some learning involved that they need to do. But if they do get it, then you know what style of bookkeeper it is. And be able to score those, your candidates in you know, comparing apples to apples. So if you've got a consistent testing method and a consistent scoring method, you're able to test them with apples and apples. And that's something that Pure Bookkeeping has created over years and years of testing, that we've got that skills test there so that it's got the template and the questions and the scoring mechanism to be able to test that, and the tricks in there as well, so that you have a level of comfort of who you were testing for and the results that they're giving you. And it is, as I said, you can compare it with other candidates, and you know, if they're not hitting that mark of what, you know, we suggest is the fail rate, if they're not passing that, well, then you know that they're not a good quality bookkeeper as well. So I think I've got a comment from Dominic. My best employee in the past learned from me, then got a full-time job, annual salary job closer to their home as soon as I trained them up. Travel time and independent work environment with some business management responsibilities in addition to bookkeeping. Awesome. So that can happen. You can put a staff member on and you can train them up, but it's my philosophy, and I think, you know, Pure Bookkeeping's as well, and a lot of people that, you know, we pay it forward, we teach it forward, we, you know, the staff that we put on, we do want to upskill them for the benefit of, you know, your business, their personal growth, small businesses, clients, you know, aspect that they get a better quality bookkeeper down the line. So never be, I know you're going to be disappointed that that person has been trained up and left, but feel proud that you have had a role in upskilling that person, and it is a positive. It will come back, you know, in another way, and that person has gone on with a great set of knowledge and a great experience with you. So feel proud that you have given that to them. Don't be afraid to put people on for the fear of them getting all of your IP and all of your knowledge and experience and running. You know, we are an open business. Bookkeepers come and go. We can't guarantee that people will stay more than, you know, I don't know, 2 or 3 years nowadays. So it's going to happen. So just be philosophical about it. Would you
Yeah, I
agree,
know.
Steve?
Yeah, no, 100% concur there. I mean, my thoughts are, I want people to come into the business and leave better than they were when they first arrived. That's the 110% intention behind it, because you're right, it does help to improve your business whilst they're there. But at the end of the day, it is certainly an achievement, and you can look back. And I know, Katrina, you talk about being a business leader as opposed, and I forget the other terminology that you use. It's going from something to being a leader, sort of an operator.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a leader. So I guess being proud of your achievement there, Dominique, in making that transition and being able to say, okay, well, I've got this, because eventually somebody is going to come along that's going to appreciate that side and stick around. And I guess maybe from a solution point of view, future reference, it might be worth, given that a lot of the things that we do these days is all digital, maybe just have a conversation around potentially more working from home hours or something like that, if that individual may want to, does want to stick around, but obviously driving to and from is a bit of a pain. So maybe just some conversations around how you can make that environment a little bit better for them might be worth chatting to them about. But otherwise, be proud of yourself, Dominique. It's a great achievement to do that.
Yeah, and that's a good point to look at the options, as you said, with the remote working. And I think, and we're going to treat performance reviews, I think, next year as well. But if we're having regular performance reviews with our staff, we get an idea of what they want. If they're dissatisfied, if we are, if they're achieving their goals, their personal goals, it's really important to have those conversations with our staff to make sure that they are settled and happy. So it's not always about the money. It is about the role that is being offered, how they are treated. They might want more time off or more flexibility rather than more money. So, that's another example. Dominic is, they've gone somewhere closer and doing more management responsibilities. Then, could you have identified that and made that offer in your business as well? So just looking out for those type of holistic things when we're staffing. Yeah.
Everybody's motivated in a different way, and at different times of their life, that motivation changes. So it really is important to not just focus on one. That whole, I gave them a pay rise, why aren't they doing what I want them to at the level that I expect them to? Well, that's not necessarily the answer for everybody. Not everybody wants that. I would choose to, I don't know, play golf once a week as opposed to get a 5% pay increase. You know what I mean? So there's everybody's got a different motivation as to why they get out of bed and come and work for you every day. And it's just important to work out what that is.
Yeah. And it might be even upskilling themselves.
Maybe.
They
100%.
want to learn, how to be an advanced in Excel or whatever the software or whatever. They want to learn more. They're for education and learning. So it's a great opportunity having those discussions.
Yep.
Yeah. And this
All right.
conversation is around, I'm not sure, has anybody heard this phrase? Hire slow and fire fast. So it's about making sure that you hire the right person. So don't jump into the first person that comes along. Make sure all the things are working for you, and then identify quickly who that person, when that person is not working.
Yeah, my recommendation there is to work out your, I guess, trigger points, work out your expectations at certain intervals in the first 3 months, because that's the most critical time. And the reason we say hire fast, we've actually done, we've got a calculator that we use that in the first 3 months at the average of a $70,000 salary, if that person doesn't work out within that first 3 months, it costs the business around $25,000. So it is incredibly important to make sure that you are making those decisions, but it needs to be based on data and facts, not just off a gut feel. So make sure you've got those trigger points throughout that first 3 months, as to say, okay, well, they're not adding in the information correctly. Their attention to detail is no good. They've been doing this for the last month. This isn't just about transition. This is just simply they don't know how to do it. Obviously, the skills test will probably pick that up first, but in saying that, have those trigger points and those identifiers to say, okay, this person is actually going to not work out for this reason. We then need to fire fast. but always speak to a HR consultant to make sure you're doing it compliantly.
Yes. Yeah, because I've got bookkeepers that have kept bad staff on for a long time because the conflict and having to go back to market, and they're just continually losing more and more money. It's not helping their business at all. So but as you say, have those triggers in place to identify what that is, and it could be, as we talked before about, what is not the right person. So maybe their skills are not up to speed as they suggested they were. Maybe they can't take client work on that you thought they could. So, we have a plan of giving them 10 clients and we transition them at 2 a week or something. In the end of 3 months, they're still only doing 6 or 4. So, there's trigger points around what work they've taken over, the workload they're doing, the productivity they're doing. Are they capable of multitasking? Often we'll have bookkeepers that hire from a bookkeeper from a single entity, and they come in and they're excellent bookkeepers at what they do for that one client, but then they come into our business and they have to work on 10 to 15 clients and they can't cope with those things. So again, have a trigger point. Can they multicast? Can they switch from client to client really quickly? Because it's so important for our business to have that skill. And if they don't, then are they going to make it? Are they going to moan that they just can't get it and they don't have the brain power to do that? And I think it is a skill in bookkeepers as well, that we undervalue how clever we are, or how spot on in being able to do that in switching really quickly. So this is around the repeatable system that we're just building. So, everything in our business needs to have a repeatable system. So whether it's our workflow management, our sales and marketing, our bookkeeping, we have systems for our bookkeeping, our checklists and all of those things. So why not in the HR area as well? Because in guarantee, this will not be your last recruitment. You will recruit again, whether you are continually growing, whether that staff doesn't work out, whatever it is, you will need to do it again. So avoid having to reinvent the wheel and put a system in place and just keep tweaking it. You need similar requirements for every time that you employ somebody. So similar testing questions, similar testing system, similar position description. So get that induction manual happening, get that system happening. And of course, feel free to contact, us at Pure Bookkeeping that has already got all of that in place. We've got the induction manual, we've got the skills testing and the templates and the questions and the scoring sheets. So we've got everything to be able to always have at the ready to keep employing without having to build any of that. We're all too busy in doing what we do, what we love. So if this is not your talent, if you don't have the time, you don't have the desire to build this system, then reach out to us. But if you are wanting to put some people on, then document what you're doing so that you do have it for next time.
Yep.
And really think about it.
All right, interview planning. So we've talked a lot about the core competency side with the skills testing. We've talked in previous weeks around the persona and ideal person, but I guess the question here is, well, how do you identify that? So it's all well and good to be able to say, well, this is what I'm looking for, but what do I need to do in order to make that happen? So when it comes to interview planning best practice, the 3 things to have a look at is, well, what's the attitude? What's their integrity like, and are they able to meet the core competencies? So perfect timing, Summer, that's great to see, but are they meeting those core competencies? And when it comes to, I guess, attitude, what you're looking for there is an employee that has a passion for the business and believes in what the company is trying to accomplish. This employee is excited about being part of your team. And I guess ways to identify that, some questions you can ask would be, well, how would you describe the perfect work environment for you and why? So get an idea from them as to what they're looking for. If they're looking for a team of 20 I don't know, team of 20, that's a really bubbly environment, but you've only got a team of 2, and it's quite an intimate, although bubbly, it's quite an intimate environment. It's very, very different. So maybe that person's not the right fit for you in terms of their attitude because they're looking for something larger. Ask them questions like, how do you react when you're asked to do something beyond your capabilities? Get an idea as to their sense of being able to push through those bounds and develop and improve. Or it may be, tell me about a time you made a mistake. How did you deal with that? Find out what you would like to see from that person. Me personally, if somebody's made a mistake, well, I would like them to come and have a conversation with me about it so we can find a solution to move forwards next time. Or ask them, tell me about a time that you've made a mistake and how did you rectify it? So, which is basically the same thing, but there's a whole range of different questions that we're going to be sending out as part of that interview guide, or you can download as a value add out of this webinar today, that will have those questions in there for you to review. Core competency, well, that's a little bit of a based on the skills test. So around questions there, it is really going to be about your the core competency, the role, and the skills testing that Pure Bookkeeping offers is phenomenal to be able to go through that, to making sure that you are ticking off all of the boxes that you need to, not forgetting about anything, and just covering all of those bits and pieces that you want to see from that specific person. And then general questions around that as well. It may be around, give me an example of how you networked, if that's part of their part of the core competencies that they need to be able to provide, or the roles and responsibility involves some networking. Then you've got questions around things like your integrity. So discuss a time when your integrity has been challenged. How did you handle it? If you saw a co-worker doing something dishonest, how would you feel about, or how would you go about dealing with that situation? And please describe your work ethic. And again, you're looking for answers here that are humble, especially around work ethic and around core competency, making sure that there is a sense of confidence, but not overconfidence. And that sort of speaks to all of the key points there. So have a bit of a think about those particular points. What attitude would you like to see from the person, and how can you go about finding that information out? And obviously, you've got to be a bit careful as to what type of questions you ask. Obviously, nothing discriminatory or anything like that. Make sure that the interview is completely unbiased. Then the core competency through the skill set, and the integrity again, just by having an understanding of the honesty of that person and how they operate from that perspective as well.
Yeah, really great points. And as you said, there's a list of questions that will come out that will help you build that, because when we look at that as a bookkeeper, we go too many words or too fluffy, or we can't articulate that question. We'll always go to the core competency, but for the rest of it, it's a little bit difficult for us. So it's great to have a sample questions to be able to look at those other points.
And just, yeah, with that as well, try always asking open-ended questions, as opposed to getting a yes or no answer. You want to ask open-ended questions to allow that conversation to flow. So this is the best practice interview framework. So you can see that we've obviously got your core competency, attitude, and integrity. I do just want to briefly speak to all of the different points there. And obviously D, the D there is the type of person that we're looking for. But sort of what to look out for based on those different styles. So when you're having that interview with that person, if they're an A, well, they've got a good attitude, they've got a strong level of core competence, but has the wrong integrity. So in that respect, the candidate will be too focused on their own goals and their own accomplishments. They won't be willing to collaborate to improve the performance of the company unless it benefits them personally. So really good competency, good attitude, but they're in it for themselves. And that's not something that you want, especially if you're taking on your first employee. Then you got the B category there. So that's the right competency and integrity, but has the wrong attitude. So the employee will leave because they have no loyalty for the organization or connection to what it is trying to accomplish. So we want to make sure that that's not the case. Integrity is there, that they are the type of person that you want to stick around. And then C, this employee has the preferred attitude and integrity, but doesn't quite have the core competency that you're looking for. And the company will suffer from productivity loss. even though the employee might be a nice individual and friendly and seem nice to work with, and you get along with them, have the right energy and passion and everything else. If there's certain skills that you may decide, actually, no, this person's really lovely, I'm willing to invest the time with them, fantastic. But if it's somebody that you need to get on the ground and start moving straight away, you want to stick away from that, because even though they're lovely, they're a nice person, they're not going to be able to give you the output that you're looking for. So obviously D is the perfect mix of attitude, core competency and integrity. With somebody that has this sort of mix, you will achieve profit maximization. And this happens because every employee you hire is adding value to the organization or your business on a consistent basis. So what that means is, as you continue to employ more people in that D category, they'll all start working together, providing their ideas and everything that you're ultimately looking for to help bring your business forward.
Yeah, and it's important to get your employee engaged with your business to be able to get that attitude and the successful mix of person. So they are, as you said, bringing in the loyalty and the attitude and understanding the purpose of your business. So, going back to last week's webinar around our not the business metrics, the vision for your business and the what was the wording of those? The
vision, mission, and values.
Yeah.
Work
on those. So that's what we did discuss last week. So to build those, the vision and the values of your business, to be able to engage that staff member. So if you know it, if you believe it, if you're you can rely on it, it's part of you, it's part of your purpose. Empower your employees to understand it, and if they get excited about that vision and that purpose, then they will be on board. They won't be looking for the quick dollar or the quick run. They will want to help your business grow.
Yeah. And it's just as important to sell your business to the candidate as it is the candidate to sell themselves to you. You want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, not giving too much away, of course, but getting them excited about working with you and working for you. I think working with you is probably the best way to explain that, not for you, because that's obviously what we would like to achieve. But yeah, certainly. And look, we'll talk more next year around some communication strategies to help continue to push that vision and values through the team.
Yeah, awesome. And I know at Pure Bookkeeping, in our induction manual, we actually have a presentation for the employee to talk about our vision and what we do and what we mean. So we've already got it ready for you to put in your wording, so there's a whole presentation that you will do for your employee to engage them in it. And if you haven't done it, then if you haven't got your values and your vision, it's a great exercise to do with your current staff. Get them involved with it now, and you really notice a difference in their desire to build and help you. Very different. Awesome. So that's come to the end of the session. So we'd like to open up for any questions that you may have. If you've got any questions that you would like to ask of myself or Steve around, the work that needs to be done before you go off and employ. And also I'll just open up a poll for those that would like to learn more. So I'm just going to, as we're just answering questions and just finishing up the webinar today. So if you would like to learn more from either Pure Bookkeeping or Happy HR, just let us know which and both, and not right now, because it might not be your time right now to learn more from it. But I'm hoping that you're getting some value from these webinars. Please go back and look at last week's webinar. I'll give the link out with the recording of today and the downloads of today. And as we said, next year, probably be in March, we'll do another 2 weeks of more intensive the ad, looking at what the ad to place, and KPIs around performance reviews of staff, So
onboarding, engagement strategies, communication strategies, all those sorts of things. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot still to come. There's always a lot in this particular topic. But Steve and I are quite passionate about HR and making sure that we put on the right people and do it the right way. So, and make a difference for yourself. So there doesn't seem to be any questions. Was there any last comments that you'd like to make, Steve?
I think we've got a question here. I'd be interested in how to hire a trainee and a plan for training, internal and external. Might be your wheelhouse there, Katrina, I think.
Yeah, well, the actual training plan, we're actually going to talk about the first session back next year as well, around the training for that person. But hiring a trainee, so there are a few different ways that you can hire a trainee. You can go to an employment agency that has the government funding. So you can reach out to them. So it's a free recruitment, and then you get several resumes and go through the testing process of that. So hiring that trainee, identifying the work that you're going to pass on to them. So have a plan of what work that they are going to be able to achieve, and have a training plan for them, or training program for them. So whether it's in a software training, so they might get their Xero certification, for example, and do their training through the software as well as through you. When you transition the work from yourself or another staff member down to the trainee, make sure you document it. So, at Pure Bookkeeping, we are very disciplined in our client manuals, documenting everything about the client, all the idiosyncrasies, having your checklists so the trainee or any staff member knows exactly what to do, which we spoke about last week. And then having that program of not throwing all the work at them at the same time. So having a planning it out. So you might give them a section of the work over to them and get them to do that for a few weeks, and continue doing that over the weeks, in getting that trainee comfortable so they're not overwhelmed with a whole lot of work straight up. And then also having a training plan. I know with Pure Bookkeeping, we do have a training program. So they are already a bookkeeper. They come in and do best practice training program. And then they have the manual that gives them all the instructions on how to do certain things with the bookkeeping. If they're not sure how to do their intercompany loans or chattel mortgages, then have a way that they can refer back to, either a manual like we've got in Pure Bookkeeping, or if you've got little videos that you can do, if it's the same type of work you're doing for that same client all of the time, then do a little Loom video for them to watch so that they know how to do it the first time, but every other time the same way, because they've got that reference of that little video. So there's a lot of different ways that we can transition successfully the trainee across, and there's lots of external training organisations as well. We currently like CPE, Proprietary Limited, so it is a training organisation that we'll do some training with next year as well. So look out for them. They could do their certificates. They could do some bookkeeping, advanced learning in there. Does that help you, Dana? I hope that's of some use.
Just one other thing to add in there, I guess, as well, Katrina, is just some reflection time. Dana, we find, especially with trainees, that it's a very overwhelming experience at time when there's a lot to learn. So giving them some time at the end of a week to just reflect on the things that they've learned, how they're feeling, making sure that your training methods are in line with the way that they learn as well. People may be more hands-on or visual, or reading helps them. They have to write things down to retain the information. So making sure that your training methods align with the way in which they learn, and also just giving them time to sort of process. It's a lot to take on. So giving them some time to have a bit of a think, write it down on paper, and it's a great way for you to have a conversation with them at the start of a week on a Monday, nice and fresh. Go through the reflection, It shows that you care. Obviously you do, but it just gives it that extra little bit that you're really taking the time out to listen to their thoughts, especially in the early stages of employment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's good points. Okay, so if there's no other last questions, we will wrap it up. You've got our email addresses there if you do want to reach out to us at any time. I've closed the poll, so we've got some contacts that would like to hear from us, which we will do over the next week. I'll send out the recording with the links to last week's recording and the downloads, so that you get access to the face-to-face interview plan and the position description from this week, and there was 3 or 4 downloads from last week as well. So look forward to continuing these conversations next year around HR and making sure that we do have a successful 2021, putting the right staff on and planning for it right now so we can do it for next year. So that was the design of these webinars. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining me again
Thank you.
today. We appreciate it. And
No worries. Thank you. Looking forward to next year.
yeah, definitely. Awesome.
Sounds
Thank you,
good.
everyone.
Thanks, team. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.